Welcome to Overtime the Podcast, a show dedicated to all things watches, with a special love for micro brands and their affordable range. I'm your host Praka, and some of you might know me as Kinda Average Watches. Join me as we explore new releases, share tips on building your collection, and put in some overtime with hands-on reviews of the latest watches. Whether you're a bit of a pro or you're just getting into the hobby, this podcast will keep you entertained with great stories from the people in the industry, casual conversations, and guest hosts who bring their own unique perspectives. Let's get started. Welcome to Overtime the Podcast, proudly sponsored by Watchpoint. All right, so this has been a special episode, works in the making for a couple of months now. Since I saw this brand on Instagram, it got me all hooked. It's been one of those brands that I've not only been so interested to get my hands on the watch, which I have, but also I really wanted to talk to these guys, really wanted to know about their story. And this is, for me, represents the best of watchmaking, or at least in my small world. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kenny and Raf to the podcast. Hey guys, how you going?
Hey Praka, how are you doing?
Good
Well,
morning.
thanks. And Raf, how are you?
Good. Just freshly out of bed.
For those playing along at home, Kenny and Raf, the brand is ZLTD Watches, and they're a Singaporean Canadian duo with this independent brand. Quite young, and with the two time zones, it's early morning for Raf and late in the evening for Kenny. So appreciate both your times and to join me in the podcast today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Praka, for taking the time. I know it's late for us and for me in Singapore, but it's also early for Raf in Canada, and I guess it's also quite early for you as well in Sydney.
No, actually in Perth, and it's the same time zone as
Sorry,
Singapore.
yeah.
It's quite same time zone in Singapore. So it's
Wow.
not too bad. Not too bad.
It's quite crazy,
Rather-
don't you think? Like, we are so far apart, but we have the same time zone.
Yeah, it is. But it works out pretty well. And it lets all my Southeast Asian brethren, works around at the same time.
Yeah, but funny story about Singapore's time zone is that our time zone is artificial time zone. I don't know if you know about it. Yeah.
I do know about that because it's actually shifted by an hour, right? Because Bangkok and everything else is +7, is it? I don't know.
Ours is +8. So I think the intention by the founding fathers was to make it closer to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So that's why I was telling Raf, if you go to the other Southeast Asia markets, around 7 p.m. it's like pitch dark outside. But in Singapore, around 7 p.m. it's just starting to get dark. So there's a lot of daylight hours for people to be, so-called productive.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Fun fact. So speaking of time and time zone and watches and everything else, what's on your wrist, folks? I'll start with you, Raf. What's on your wrist?
I haven't really had time to put anything on today, but yesterday all day I was wearing our Series 2 watch, which came back to me for service after the watch shows and some of the rounds it's been making recently.
Awesome. And of course, guys, we'll have everything in the show notes. Series 1, Series 1.5, Series 2. We're going to talk through each of these watches as well. So Series 2, absolutely beautiful, but we will get into it a bit further. Kenny, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, I think because it's so late at night, I'm not wearing a watch now. But then yesterday I was actually wearing the Series 1 watch, a really special piece to my heart. It's the first ever piece that was created. So it's actually the one in the silver dial with the purple hands. Yeah, so that is a very special piece. It's the inaugural piece. Honestly, I would have worn the Series 2 as well, but then it's back with Raf in Canada. I decided to go down that nostalgia path instead.
That's awesome. Series 1, fantastic. I mean, that's what got me hooked onto your brand. I think I was Niels
Peterson.
That's right, Niels Peterson on Instagram. He posted a photo up and I was like, oh, what is this? I've not seen this before. And then that's when I started talking to you and guys on Instagram, and the rest is history. So fantastic. And I'll wrap up what's on my wrist. Of course, has to be ZLTD. This is the Series 1.5 in the Aubergine dial variant. So yes, I'm very proud owner of this watch. I basically, everyone that asks me about it, or even if they don't, I'll tell them about it and make sure they know all the little cool different things about it. And, the amount of handwork that's gone into this is incredible. And this was just a stepping stone to all the crazy handwork that's coming. I mean, that has come in Series 2 and further on. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Praka. I think for Series 1.5, you were one of the first few that reached out to us to get an allocation. Yeah, really grateful for that. And of course, grateful to Niels Peterson. He has been a great supporter of the brand since day one. Maybe this is a good time to segue into the Series 1. I guess that's the first one. Yeah, so I think to your listeners, Series 1 is, you guys go by chronological order. So Series 1 is obviously the first watch that we did. Series 1 was, at the time, I would say a passion project from my side. I've always been a watch enthusiast and collector, so very similar to yourself, Praka. And I think one day I was watching a video from, I think, the 1916 company, Tim Mosso. Yeah, he was talking about one of the Roger Smith video on one of the watches. I think it was a Series 1 from his side as well. And I heard so many different terms that I have never heard before. So he was talking about mirror polishing, heat tempering of the hands, engraving and then lacquering over. And I think at that point of time, as a collector, I mainly dabbled in, the Seikos, the Casios. I would say watches that are mainly more suited for mass production. And I think at that period of time, I was just so shocked that there was such a amazing part of horology that I never knew about. So I went down the rabbit hole, did a lot of research, and realized like, hey, I really love the independent watchmaking scene. And from there, Series 1 was born. Series 1 was honestly a passion project that I wanted to kind of get my hands dirty to kind of better appreciate the craftsmanship that, these amazing watchmakers did. So in a way, it was just me trying to get a better appreciation for the watches I love. And through that whole process, Series 1, I created it because I also love dress watches. So dress watches are my favorite kind of watches. Quite not as similar to Raf. I think Raf loves sports watches better. He's a metal bracelet kind of person, but I'm a leather strap kind of person. So I think we complement it really well on that part. So, and in Series 1, I needed a great partner to work with me on the manufacturing of the parts, like the indexers at the hand. And at that time, Raf was doing, I'll let Raf introduce his side of things, but I just wanted to give a bit of context on how we partnered. So Raf is a partner I worked with to produce those parts. He's a great CNC machinist as well. So he helped me to design some of the parts, create the parts, and the rest is history. There was Series 1, fully subscribed I just posted it online. I remember I posted stick previews about it, and then people like Niels reach out. I wanted to do a bit of a sneak preview. If you can tell, like on our IG, we have that that penchant of trying to do sneak previews, like count down day by day. And then like Niels reached out, and he's not the most patient person, so he was asking for sneak previews. I shared it across. He was very kind. He shared it with some of his watch collector friends, and 15 pieces just got snapped up like this. And after that, I told Raf, I was talking to Raf for about a year before that, right? So I texted him probably a bit more than even my own spouse. And then we have a very great chemistry, and we have the same vision for what a watch brand should be. So after that, it was very natural that we decided to team up. ZLTD is actually the combination of ZL which is my initials, and then Zivonek from Raf. So I think that's where the brand was born. But honestly, I couldn't have done it without Raf. So even for Series 1 finishing, he was the mentor to a lot of the finishing that I did. And you can tell that's why once Series 1.5 came in, which was where Raf was doing it hands-on for the whole series, you can tell the finishing actually took a big step up, right? So one was more of my amateur effort at doing finishing, but a very passion project kind of basis. And then 1.5 was, Ralph's great skill set involved.
Amazing. Before I let, switch over to Raf and get your side of the story, I just wanted a bit of a recap. I mean, there's watch collecting, and then there's watch collecting, and then there's I'm going to make my own brand. It's a significant step up from being a collector to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it myself. So firstly, congratulations, and I guess well done on taking that leap of being like yeah, I'm going to give this a go. And obviously you've found great partners, and now you have one in Raf that's, you've made this into a brand. So well done, Kenny. So Raf, across to you, mate. So you're the CNC specialist. You're the guru. You're the watchmaking side of it. Is from what my understanding is, from the initial finishing and such from Kenny to then, I guess taking that vision and then putting it all from paper to the metal. So, how did you start? Even before you got linked up with Kenny, how'd you get into watchmaking?
I'm not a watchmaker by training. I'm actually an electrical engineer. So I worked in oil and gas for a few years, and watchmaking was just a passion thing on the side. I was slowly learning it. And kind of like Kenny, I had my own journey where I wanted to start my own brand. I actually ran Arcus watches out of Canada for a few years. But with things changing with our neighbors down south, that business unfortunately wasn't viable anymore. But at that point, I'd been working with Kenny long enough that we decided, well, we have a different client base now. We're doing higher end products. I'm just going to switch over full time onto this. And I haven't looked back since. It's been probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. As far as watchmaking goes, I got into it through my grandparents, actually. They had some old Soviet watches in Poland. So when we'd go visit them in the summers, I started tinkering with them. I obviously broke a few, but they're just worthless old watches, so it didn't matter. And when I finally got one back together and it was still ticking, that was kind of the hook for me. Like after that, I was just sucked into it and the money kept coming out of my pocket. It was more and more and more. I bought machines. I built the CNC machines that we use today. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
You've personally built these CNC machines. I mean, that's no joke. That's really cool. So electrical engineering, that's cool. I'm an engineer as well by it's my day job, but I definitely don't do cool stuff like you. Definitely not. So then you've come to a point now and you've been working with Kenny to manufacture these parts. Were you doing it for other brands as well before? Yeah, obviously you talked about your own brand that you were running, but were you doing this similar type of thing for other sort of brands? You don't have to mention the brands, by the way. You can say
Oh,
yes or
yeah,
no.
yeah, of course. So for Arcus, that was kind of my primary target. My kind of key there was I did all sorts of modified movements in my watches. That's kind of where I'm passionate. I like modifying things. I like creating. There were times where I had, for example, less work. I'd fill up the machine with other people's work. So that was just kind of a bit of
Mhm.
passive cash flow to keep building the business. Since Kenny, he's kept me so busy that I've had to drop all the smaller clients and like we're basically
Yeah, but
running,
it worked out really well. So
yeah, we're running two machines full tilt right now.
It's worked out well. It's given birth to this brand. So we've pivoted now. We've got to the story where you guys have decided, yeah, let's do this. Let's make a brand together and let's get this forward. I mean, it must be pretty hard though, right? I mean, we did talk in the start of the podcast about time zones and the like. How does that work for you guys? You're what's that? Nearly, I don't know how many hours apart, but it's the morning for Raf and it's nighttime for Kenny. How does that work for you guys?
It actually
I
works super well for us. Um,
need because of Ralph's habits.
yeah, Kenny wakes up. It's 7 p.m. here in Canada, and I'm usually up till about 2 a.m. anyways. I'm a night owl, so I work on Singapore hours. Like for me to be up at this hour is usually unheard of,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is
Okay. All
the
right.
earliest you have woken up in some time, right, Ralph?
for sure. I mean, Kenny's up late talking to somebody. I think his wife was getting suspicious, but when she finally met me when I went to Singapore, things
Yeah.
kind of calmed down a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite funny. Every time my phone rings around 11 p.m., my wife will be like, "Oh, is Ralph awake now?" So, yeah, so that's the inside joke around the household.
Oh, that's funny. It's true. I mean, I'm not running a watch business or anything I like, but you do end up making friends all around the world with this hobby, don't you? You end up connecting with so many people, and it just, yeah, as much as we think how big the hobby is, it really isn't in terms of the world as a whole. It's still quite niche. And then even more niche is independent watches. Kudos to you guys to really, really taking this to the next level. So Speaking of the next level, so you've done your Series 1 and you've had your 15 watches that was snapped up real quickly. And I was one of the disappointed ones that when I did contact, it was like, oh, sorry, mate, it was sold out a long time ago. However, keep your eyes open. There's going to be Series 1.5, which is what I've got on here. So between 1 and 1.5, there's obviously been some incremental improvements, things that you've done, things that you wanted to do, and you achieved. So if you could sort of, Kenny, talk us through the design changes, and maybe once that's done, Raf, you could tell us how you actually technically did these.
Yeah, so I think for Series 1, the onset of the design is we wanted a very simple dress watch kind of concept. So we can see that the watch itself is very elegant. At the time, we used a laser guilloche dial. One of the things that we kind of wanted to highlight, it's really more on the craftsmanship side of things. So for example, the mirror polish indexes, the indexes, they go through multiple rounds of sandpaper and then diamond paste in order to get that nice mirror finish. And then when you look at the watch hands itself, they also go through the same process, but at the end of the day, we heat it to a certain color. I think mainly for your listeners as to understand the process, where you heat steel hands under a flame, they go from normal steel color. The next step is straw, and then it goes to brown, and then purple, and then blue. And then if you continue heating it, it goes into like a very ugly a silver color again, ironically. But essentially what happens is that at a different temperature, an oxide layer forms on the steel to protect it, and that gives the watch that hence those color. If you notice for Series 1, we kind of wanted to practice both of this craftsmanship in the watch itself. So you can see both of the elements in Series 1. Moving on to Series 1.5, it's an evolution from Series 1, in part to cater to, the demand that we had for Series 1, from people who have been messaging us to rerun it. But then as a collector myself, I spoke to Raf, and that time, if we wanted to just make a buck, we could have just reran that same guilloche design. We could have sold another 50 pieces easily. But I think to us, it's as a collector myself and Raf as well, we knew how irritating it would be for, let's say, a Series 1 collector to suddenly see their watch get diluted. And it's a pet peeve of mine to see. I think I'm shooting myself in the foot here in advance. So sorry to, myself in 5 years. But when brands start to rerun certain designs in different colors, it's just, after a while, the collector feels like it's a money grab, and, it makes them lose the love for the brand. So we wanted to kind of avoid that. And I was talking to Raf, and, he had a great idea of this nice anodized titanium dials that we can do in-house. So we decided to go down that path and, change those, instead of a laser guilloche dial, we changed it to a very nice anodized titanium dial. And instead of going through always the usual blue titanium dials, we decided to go with that bronze as well as the aubergine, or what we call the eggplant shade of purple titanium dial. We believe those are really nice options, and we wanted to make Series 1.5 a bit sportier versus Series 1. So that was the rationale. And in terms of the improvements in the finishing, I'll leave it to Ralph, as there were improvements made in, I think, the hands and the chaptering noticeably.
Yeah, on the finishing front, I'd say the hands are probably one of the bigger ones. We spent more time on the polishing. The indices polishing was quality-wise about the same, but the method of doing it was a bit different. So if you compare the two watches side by side, Series 1.5 has significantly flatter indices than Series 1 did. Series 1 were a bit rounded, but with that curvature, we found it was hard keeping consistency. So we found a slightly different way to process the indices and get them through their polishing sequence. And I think the biggest change that's most obvious when you first look at the watches is the chaptering. The engravings were done slightly differently, and they're far crisper than the original ones were. The lacquer was changed between Series 1s and Series 1.5. So again, the filling it makes things sharper, it looks nicer. And then obviously we added the little touch of the red infinity logo at the 6 o'clock. So that was a bit of a departure from the original concept.
So the red infinity logo, we'll touch on that before I go back and ask a couple more questions. The significance of that logo, I think I know what it is because I've cheated, and of course I've done my research before I chat with you guys. But For the listeners that haven't, please let us know what that means.
Well, to be quite frank, we were kind of discussing back and forth what the symbolism could be because we ourselves weren't too sure at first. And then I came up with the thought, well, Singapore and Canada both have red as kind of official country colors. And so we thought it's kind of a nice touch to have Singapore and Canada forever, hoping that this relationship lasts as long as it can.
I think on the chapter ring side, I just wanted to add on a few points. So we know that chapter ring is not something unique to our brand. I think one part that we do a bit different is that we take a bit more, put in a bit of more effort on the creation of the chapter ring and the finishing. So if you look at the chapter ring that in our watches, right, they are engraved and then they are hand filled with Japanese cashew urushi lacquer to get that really nice, glossy, crisp look on it. The other part that Ralph does really well is the inside of the chapter ring. He kind of polishes it too. So there's actually a very nice gleam in the inner ring of the chapter ring. And this is something that you only see in higher end independent watches because most mass brands have a chapter ring. Most of the time, the minute markers are actually pad printed, and even the inside of the chapter ring is not polished because it adds a lot of cost, right? These are all just man hours. If you're going to add in all these things, it's usually only seen in really high-end independent watches. But then I think for us, is we wanted to add that nice touch to the watch. One part of that we really believe is for our watches, we want it to be visually stimulating throughout the day, so you can tell all the parts in the watch is shiny. Every time it has a different look, right? When you look at your wrist, you do a wrist shot, you turn it around, hits the light at different angles. The watch shows a different face to it. And it keeps the user or the collector engaged throughout the day. I mean, you're going to wear the watch for 7 to 8 hours a day. If the watch is not engaging you for that long, you get bored of it very quickly. Yeah. So these were some of the design concepts that we thought of, when we created the series of watches. So even any parts that can be polished, can engage the eye, we kept those. But then if you look at the titanium dial, it's actually brushed finish. It's not polished. And we kind of did it deliberately as well. If everything is polished, then when you look at the watch, it just looks like a diamond. It gets too blingy, and it's not a really great kind of daily wear. So the brushed titanium dial gives the watch a bit more sophistication and a background for these polished elements to really shine.
Folks, I'm looking down at my watch the entire time whilst Kenny's describing this and Raf's describing this, and it's amazing, really. It's awesome to be hearing exactly the process that went through, or the design, thought, the reasoning behind why you've done what you've done. It's really cool. It's really special. I must add about the dynamic nature of the dial as well, or just the watch in its whole. I mean, it does change. Like, I could be sitting in the same spot, different light hits here, or looking at there. I know there's a lot of play and there's a lot of words around saying, oh, it plays with the light. It's a very tacky sort of thing that's said and thing, but it's dynamic. Is I think what you want to put the word. It is very dynamic, and it changes like insane. I've got lights here now. I'm looking at it, and it's completely different to what's in front of me right now. And it's cool. I like what you've done. I really do.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your capabilities as well, or the things that you've done since 1 to 1.5. You've obviously had to scale up a little bit more, Raf. I mean, did you have to, get new tools in and new machinery in? And are we talking, because obviously more man hours as well? Kenny's keeping you busy, eh?
Yeah. So with Series 1, I think we've mentioned previously that was kind of the test project for Kenny. So I helped him out there, but I think his intention there wasn't necessarily to commercialize it at that point. I think if I recall, he just barely broke even on that project.
I make a loss, actually.
There you go.
When we started working together, the intention behind that is, well, we still want to offer competitive prices and something that adds value to our collectors, but we want to commercialize it a little bit so we can take that income and grow the business into something more. Because at that point, we had already started talking about the concept of Series 2. So we kind of knew where we were aiming down the road, and we were thinking what we had to prepare in advance to get there. So on that one, the modest profits that we had from that, we reinvested basically entirely into buying a second CNC and then just improving all sorts of miscellaneous equipment. So before, a lot of the watch movement cleaning I did with worse quality machines. Some of it I did by hand. We got better cleaning equipment. It's just small improvements here and there to make my life easier, just so I can accommodate the slightly larger volume of watches.
Mm, mm. Yeah. So you're becoming more efficient then.
Yeah, this year was a transition year. Like previously, I was still working my job, and then when things started to go well, I decided I'm going to focus my energy on just building this business 100. For that, obviously, I need more time, so I don't want to be standing around doing like these menial tasks. And again, we've just improved the processes, we've smoothened things out, and now I get to focus on building the watches. Our production this year totals at about 60, 65 watches. And I think going forward, that's probably where we're going to plateau. We have other interesting projects planned, obviously, but I think Series 2 and the special series, which we'll talk about next, is kind of a good visual of what to expect from the brand going forward.
Awesome. Series 2 and the special projects. Let's go to Series 2 first and then take a step back to the special projects. So Series 2, when you first sent out some sneak peek previews to myself on Instagram, I was like, whoa, like, what is this? Like, it felt like a huge different direction, but in a sense, not still. It still felt like your brand, brand identity, but definitely also felt like a real departure technically. Visually, yes, but also technically. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, of course, everything, guys, it's linked, but we're talking like exposed parts of the movement. You've got this, what do you call that? An inclined.
20-degree incline balance wheel.
There you go. I'm definitely not a watchmaker. Please, Kenny, if you could run through your design inspiration for this, and like you guys mentioned, this is almost like what your vision is for the future.
Yeah, I just want to preface this by saying that Series 2 is our 100% Ralph's brainchild. We work together on the dial side of design, but the whole mechanism movement is just his own brilliance at it. When we were discussing Series 2, I was telling Ralph, maybe the natural progression is going from a center seconds watch to a small seconds watch, right? So if you look at center seconds, is what we did in Series 1 and 1.5. So almost like a natural evolution will be to make a small seconds. At the time, Ralph came to me and said that, you know what, he thought it was pretty meh to do something so boring. So I was like, okay. I knew he had great capabilities in movement modification. So I kind of left it to him to decide that, okay, what movement our watch should have. At the time, I kind of expected him to come back with, maybe the small seconds at 3 p.m. or maybe at the 9 o'clock position. Something different, right? As opposed to a 6 o'clock position for the small seconds. And then he told me like, let's do a inclined balance wheel. And I have to say, like, the moment I read the message, I was gobsmacked. I was like, what are you talking about? Because my impression of inclined balance wheel, you probably know a couple of brands that do it. And those brands, they charge like 6 digits, right? Easily 6 digits for their watch itself. So at the time, I trusted Ralph. So I told Ralph, like, if you can do it, fantastic, let's go with it. The prototype took 1 year. And throughout the whole process, Ralph will send me bits and pieces because we had to do Series 1.5, the special series, in parallel to all this prototyping. And every time he'll send me some photos of Series 2 and some parts of coming up to the whole Series 2, like what you see now. And sometimes like I look at those parts and gears and I think to myself, like, what the hell am I looking at? So it's very technical, right? So some parts are very technical and then it's just bits and gears and everything. But then I think about 3 months ago, before Series 2 was launched, everything started to come together. And when I saw their watch, I told Ralph, like, this is amazing. Loss of words, I would say, is what I felt at the time. And I'm sure, like, for most of you, when you guys saw Series 2, the main consensus was like everybody was so shocked, right? So I think going on to Series 2 design, we still wanted to keep a kind of evolution of the design in order to make sure there's cohesive design language. I think for brands, the danger it's really, especially for new brands, right? You don't have a cohesive language and people can't tell that it's a watch. So I think for us, we took on a new hands design. We did the anodized titanium dials that we took on from Series 1.5. We kept the same kind of case design, just that the case, we kind of evolved it slightly, where it's a more of a step lux design. If you look at our case, the lux itself is something that we are really proud of. It's a bit of a mix between like a Comte de Vache and also a teardrop lux. So it's a bit of a mix, right? Just mainly because we can't make up our minds which one we want. And also kind of like when you blend it together, it's actually pretty aesthetically nice.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the consistent language that we brought on to Series 2. But I think for Raf, I'll leave it to him to talk about the movement, but the part that really came across really nicely is that a lot of the gears were exposed at the front. And I think that's where the whole watch really shines, right? It's not just a small dial and then elements that are kind of displaced, but everything comes together really nicely. If you look at the main dial itself, we also have a small seconds. Our small seconds dial is actually below the main dial. And the small seconds dial, like instead of having a second hand that rotates around, the seconds dial is actually rotating, right? So it's actually an arrow that kind of points to the time, and then the seconds is actually rotating as opposed to the seconds hand moving. So it's actually Valve's brilliance. I think.
So the hand itself is like fixed, basically,
Yeah,
because
it's fixed
on the bottom, and then the wheel, the seconds wheel turns, and that's what's telling you that's really cool. That's awesome.
So the thing that we connected is probably to the fourth wheel.
Yeah.
The wheel that turns the seconds hand. So we use that as the indicator, which was a brilliant stroke because like it makes the whole watch come together really nicely. And there's not too many moving hands, I would say, right? So the watch design is aesthetically really nice.
So Series 2 movement, when I told Kenny about it for the first time, he kind of looked at me like a crazy person. I was like, what are you talking about? This isn't a thing. Like, it was kind of, yeah, you go do it, try it out, see what happens. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it and we'll see. But no, jokes aside, Kenny was super supportive throughout the process. And
if you're into microbrand and independent watches, which you clearly are as you're listening to this podcast, you got to check out Watchpoint. Watchpoint is the newest destination in Melbourne, Australia for microbrand and independent watches. But it's more than just a brick and mortar store. It's a hub for watch enthusiasts. Come check out brands such as HZ, Baozell, Second Hour, RZE, and Monbray, and other exciting watches you won't find anywhere else. Watchpoint is also your go-to website for buying said watches, exploring microbrand profiles, discovering new releases, and staying informed with editorials, industry insights, and buying guides. So if you're keen on trying out your favorite microbrand watches, drop into Shop 304, Level 3, the Block Arcade on Collins Street, or visit watchpoint.com.au or check them out on Instagram at watchpoint.au for more.
it was a long journey and there was quite a bit to overcome with it. I think it was a few months before the first working prototype came to view, and we saw I had just a small piece of the gear train and the incline balance wheel all mounted together on a small prototype. It was just tweezer powered at that point.
Sure.
But when we saw it ticking for the first time, that was kind of like, okay, that was the biggest obstacle in the whole project. The rest, we're going to iron out the details and we're going to get this across the finish line. We were basically working up until, well, I think it was 2 days before Spring Sprung in November. So November 4th, I was leaving to come to Singapore. And on November 1st or 2nd, the watch finally got kind of wrapped up.
Right. You left it right to the last minute then.
That's right.
He does his best work at the last minute.
I like it. Yeah, I feel like I do the same, very much the same too. But maybe it's an engineer's trait. Maybe it isn't. That's awesome. I mean, speaking of, Spring Sprung, you guys showed the watch off and showed yourself. So yes, that's where I think it was the very first time I actually saw a photo of you guys together, and it was kind of cool. Was that the first time you guys met, like in person?
Oh yeah, March 2025.
Yeah, so I think Ralph and his wife came over, so we actually met for the first time.
Awesome.
To have a meal, and I took them around Singapore and stuff.
That's awesome. So, look, Series 2, I mean, just going back to the movement and the watch itself, it's bonkers, really. It's just not something that we see in sort of a new brand coming to the space, into the independent micro space, to have something like this. Like you say, this is something that we see in six-figure type brands and long established brands that have been doing movements and movement technology. So do note that you have used a editor base. Calling it an editor base is really a joke because it's literally just it's like a deconstructed, everything is just completely taken apart, pulled, and you've used a couple of pieces from an editor movement. That's kind of what it is. Have you also made pieces as well in there? Like the other stuff? Have you built little CNC parts for it as well?
Yeah, so the main plate and the bridges, like basically everything outside of the gear train, we manufacture ourselves in house. And for us being such a small brand, on one hand, like if I want to pat my own back a little bit, it is a bit impressive. But the reason we're able to do this at such a scale for the price point is actually because I built the machine. So the overhead cost is very low. The machines are very specifically tailored to exactly what we need. And because that initial overhead cost is low, and I'm basically able to do all the prototyping work myself, like we're able to go through iterations very quickly. If something's not working, I don't have to go back and forth with the vendor, adjust the drawings, pay more to get things made. Like it's basically just man hours and material cost. And if I know what I'm looking at, I know what changes have to be made. Even the man hours end up being pretty small because at the end of the day, it's just the machine running and I can go focus on other stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's impressive, really. And I guess that also maybe talks about the scaling of the brand and where we are with Series 2 is still not quite finished. We want to talk about the other couple of special projects that you guys been working on as well. Between Series 1, Series 1.5, Series 2, and the special projects, which we'll touch in a second, the actual quantity of watches that you've made in a year and a year and a half, do you feel like it's I'm not going to say sustainable because I definitely think it is, because it sounds like you've scaled up in the sense of having new machinery, etc. But where do you see yourself? I hate this question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But you understand what I'm saying. Like, where, do you see yourself like going into the thousands per run, or are you talking about still sticking around that 150 mark, or 15 even?
I think one part of the brand, maybe a bit of a detour, is that I think both of us with our backgrounds, we are not traditional watchmakers per se, but I guess from it's where we are able to imagine new things and new ideas of doing, new ways of doing things, rather than be constrained by, let's say you go into watchmaking school, usually there's a traditional path and, traditional watches that you would do. But I guess with Ralph's engineering background, watchmaking background, and my collector kind of background per se, I think we're able to imagine new possibilities of watches and make them come to life with Ralph's specialized skill sets in machining. If you're talking about production, with that, when you create unique pieces, it's also hard to create, I guess, 1,000 pieces and make it of significance, right? So one thing that we wanted to do for the brand is we wanted to combine movement modification along with this hand finishing that you see in the watches. And to that point, it's hard to do like, the thousands of production. There's only one of Raf. I mean, we have plans in the future to hire a team to help him. But in the meantime, it's just him and I can't clone him yet at least. So, we want to keep quality in the watches that we produce. So I was discussing with Raf, I would say 80 to 100 watches, or maybe a bit lesser than 80 will be a sweet spot. We want to keep it, we want to do the watches justice, right? A lot of engineering work goes behind it, and we don't want to just, scale up and lose that quality. I think at the end of the day, we want to deliver a quality piece to the collectors. So that's the part of the question.
From a manufacturing standpoint, you can really scale to the unlimited, but honestly, like past a very low point, I'd say probably 100, 150 watches, that hand finishing aspect is going to be out the window.
Mm.
It's
And
impossible to do the hand finishing work to a level we're doing it now, and even better, and produce large quantity. Like those two just don't go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah.
And actually, on a selfish level, I think Raf and I, we always have new ideas for the watches. So imagine if we do 100 pieces for Series 3 or Series 4. Every time we do like large production runs, it takes away time for prototyping for the next series. So selfishly, we want to kind of spend a bit more time on R&D and prototyping the next movement modification as opposed to creating like 100 pieces of one series. I think that is the selfishly, like, we just want to create cool watches, and it's boring to create. Even if it's cool to create a cool watch, it's boring to create 1,000 of the cool watch on the production side. Yeah, we'd rather spend more time on R&D. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to all the wonderful creations that are going to come up. You talk about series 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that takes you guys. Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to that. So let's step back, and we sort of touched about this in a second ago. But the special projects. I mean, I think there's 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, that I've seen so far. Or maybe there was like a 1 and then there's like a colorway 1. So talk me through the one with special project number 1.
Yeah. So special projects number 1 is a collaboration that we did with Legacy Watch Co. So they are a second-hand dealer in Singapore. So a bit of a plug for them. If you're looking for nice independent watches, go to Legacy Watch Co. So they have a very good assortment of indie watches at a reasonable price. Yeah, so I think Sean, he very kindly helped us to take photographs of our watches. So you can see that our aesthetics of our shots are quite similar, right? And that's where Sean helped us to create those nice photographs. So I way to thank him for his support. Raf and I decided to do that collaboration with him. But Special Projects Series number 1 is really a tribute and a homage to our Series 1 of watches. Hence the Special Projects number 1. Raf and I basically asked ourselves, we made quite a bit of progress in terms of manufacturing, in terms of understanding what capabilities we have, as well as on the machining side, we have better equipment. So we thought to ourselves, if we were to reimagine Series 1 in today's context, how would we do it all over again? And this is how the Special Projects number 1 series was born. If you look at the dial itself, we now use a hand guilloche dial. It's a really beautiful hand guilloche dial. Series 1 was a laser engraved dial. And I think this is where, people always talk about technology and how, nowadays, like, all this old craftsmanship is gone. But you can ask Raf as well. When we look at the hand guilloche dial under magnification, the grooves that is created from a Rose engine is very different from a laser, and to some extent even CNC, right? I'm sure there are modern CNCs that could replicate to some extent, but there's some beauty in that Rose engine way of doing it, the old school way of doing it. We also made some changes in terms of the indexes. So if you look at your watch on Series 1.5, the hour indexes are on the dial. But then we thought to ourselves, it's almost like a crime to block any part of that beautiful guilloche dial. So what we did was, Ralph had a great idea of, let's move the indexes to the chapter ring. Right, so we moved it to the 12.936 position, and then the indexes originated from there. On the other hand, I also didn't want the collectors to feel like, we are kind of shortchanging them on the other hour indexes. So what we did was that we actually created rounded indexes for the 5-minute markers. So this was an additional piece that Ralph actually creates on a lathe. We mirror polish it and then we install it on the chapter ring. So Ralph, can you remind me again how many parts to the chapter ring was it? Was it 36 or 13 parts?
No. The new ones, each chapter ring is 13 pieces.
13 pieces, yeah. So it's 13 parts coming together, right? So yeah,
those little 5-minute indices are so small, and you've machined and lathed and black mirror polished them as well. That's crazy.
Yeah. So dimensionally, those pieces are 0.8 millimeters in diameter and 0.4 millimeters thick. It's basically dust at that point.
I like it. That's cool to get these kind of context of these things, because I think, especially from the standpoint of what we normally talk about in this podcast, which is about affordable micro brand space and all that, hearing all this detail about hand finishing is I think it's a bit lost on me. Even I don't really understand the context of this, so it's really cool to get that context. So it's a beautiful dial. And just stepping back a little bit as well, because you mentioned, I know CNC and rose tone engine gear shade, and the very first one was laser. How different is laser and CNC in terms of, I guess, process wise and in terms of quality wise?
The Rose engine is basically like a lathe that turns very, very slowly. So it's a cutter that's grooving out the pattern. With the laser, you're essentially just vaporizing metal. So it goes over layer by layer. And the way it's set up, like the deeper it goes, the more times the laser passes over that area. So it ends up kind of being like, if you think about geography, it's a topographic map.
Yes.
And so wherever it's deeper,
Mm.
it's a darker color on the file, and the laser just does that many more passes. In terms of quality, it's like from a distance, it's hard to tell. But when you get 5 times 10 magnification, like it's immediately apparent. The laser kind of leaves these linear marks on it. It looks nice, but it's not the cleanest. Whereas the dial done on the Rose engine, like we got our microscope that goes up to times 92 magnification, and we couldn't find a flaw. Like I did
It's
my
amazing.
absolute best and I couldn't find anything. It was just insanity.
It's wild. It's wild. And a traditional CNC, it's just following. It's just cutting using a tool, but it's CNC machine.
Yeah, so there are some variants of the CNC where it's not necessarily a rotating tool that's milling out the pattern. It's a stationary tool that moves around and cuts
Yes.
out the pattern kind of like a lathe would, or the Rose engine, sorry.
Right.
Again, the quality on those is varied because the machine applies a constant amount of pressure and it's much larger than what a hand can apply. Obviously, that changes the results quite drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
awesome.
I think maybe like visually speaking, the Rose engine also creates certain grooves on the dial that when you see the pictures, right, for series 1.5 versus series 1, you can see like the metal almost has like parts where it's a bit, how do I say, it's a bit like hills, mountains and hills, right? And then there's like ravines as well. So it's almost like up, down, up, down. And visually, when you see it, it's a really nice symphony of like things coming together. Yeah, we cannot be happier with the Kidoshi dials that we did for the special series number 1. I think at that point, I think at that point as well, this is the watch where we created these special, our own in-house design hands. I think for Raf and I, we really loved assegai hands or these spear-shaped hands. So what we did was that we looked at so many different kinds of spear tips. We went through many renditions. I think Raf can attest to it. And then we kind of landed on the design that you see now, right? I think for myself and Raf, we have a pet peeve of wanting to be sure that we can tell the time effectively. Hence, the legibility of the hands is something that is very top of mind for us. So the spear shape hands are something that we did in-house, design it in-house, produce in-house, finish in-house. So as Raf mentioned, we control a lot of the machines. We went through a lot of prototypes, but everything is done in-house, so it saved us quite a bit of cash, and we cannot be happier with the hands and how they turned out.
It's awesome. It's I was going to say spear tip, but it is its own unique twist, isn't it? Again, folks playing along, please check out the photos. This is one of those episodes where you really need the photos right in front of you to really understand and appreciate the beauty and the I guess the design process when we get there. So no, it's awesome. Special project number 1, okay? And then there was something that I don't know, I may not be calling it, but it was the red dial. It was a Christmas special. Was it? Or something along those lines?
Yes.
It was a charity special. Was that it?
I think, yeah. So before that, like, we also want to kind of highlight that for the special projects watch, I think it's a time where we started to move towards like the movement side of things where Raf's expertise really shined. So for special projects number 1 series, we actually used a movement that is adapted from a Solitaire base. So we use the same base as our series 1 movement, which is Solitaire. As that we did was that we totally just created our own custom stainless steel bridges. We threw out all the old bridges from the old Solitaire movement. Raf did all the finishing on it. It's our own in-house design. Hence, like, it's a really nice movement as well. If you checked out the special
beautiful.
project number 1 series. Yeah. And then we did a circular Coty Genève. Moving on to the Christmas watch. I think this is honestly Ralph's idea. He wanted to, I think Ralph, you want to take this question. I think you'll be better suited for this.
Yeah, the Christmas watch to me, like we had such a phenomenal year. It was so unexpected to us that I wanted to end it on kind of a note of giving back. And here locally, my church organizes Christmas hampers every year. So for families in need who can't afford a Christmas meal, they put together all the stuff from different food donations. And then there's the option of giving cash donations so they can purchase whatever food items or anything else that's necessary for these kits to be handed out. And so I thought, well, I would really love to give this year to that kind of cause to help those who have been less fortunate than us. And Kenny was super supportive of that. We decided, well, we can't just give to Canadian charity only. Like, you're in Singapore, So Kenny went and found another charity in Singapore that is supporting youth, I believe. And yeah, we decided let's do just a one-off watch, make it unique, and auction it off. And anything that comes of it, we donated entirely.
Yeah, that was awesome. Well done, you guys. Yeah, when I saw that, and I was like, again, very cool. I love a piece unique. It's an awesome red dial, very Christmassy, very on theme. Yeah, it's also benefits these two charities. So well done. Well,
Yeah.
it's only been how long since the brand has actually started? As much as you've said that, yes, we don't want to pump out, volume wise, in terms of ideas and different types of watches, there's a lot that's gone in there. I mean, I'm sure that this has, been formulated for a while, but it feels like it started off, it started off with a little test run, and then bang, it's gone to where it is now. I must ask, what's next? What's happening in 2026 and beyond?
I think the special series is kind of a good indication of where the brand is heading. That was the first release where we've kind of developed our own brand language. When you look at that watch, it's like, yeah, that's ZLTD. It's not an homage to something else. The earlier watches, like they had different aspects of watchmakers that we both like. Voutilainen, for example.
Mm.
Those watches took a lot of inspiration from his. Kenny's a big Urban Jurgensen fan. So again, some elements there. But again, yeah, special series 1 and then series 2, that's kind of our own design language evolving, and we're going to see more of that in the coming years. As far as the different series goes, we're definitely working on building up what we've started with series 2, and that means more in-house produced movements, different complications, and again, keeping it affordable enough to bring value to collectors.
Awesome. And I guess, you mentioned the word affordable enough to bring value to collectors. And one thing that I haven't really mentioned throughout the whole podcast is about, I guess, the pricing or the pricing structure. So Kenny, I guess, do you want to touch on that and where how we started with series 1 and obviously where it's evolved now? What's your plan or, going forward?
Yeah. So I think for series 1, as I kind of mentioned, it's really a passion project. Essentially, it was priced at, I think, USD 1,200. I would say very affordable and very reasonable for the amount of hand finishing that went into it. And then for series 1.5, as Raf mentioned, we needed to raise some capital to buy new equipment, invest in tooling, and hence the price of that was USD 1.8K. But of course, with it, there's also a lot of improvements in the finishing, and there's also a movement modification that we didn't touch on in earlier. But series 1.5 actually has a jump power mechanism inbuilt into it. So we believe that, it was able to justify that higher price point. And then moving on to the special projects number 1 series, where there was more in-house movements and more modification, that price was around USD 3.5 thousand.
Mhm.
And then for series 2, it's at USD 7.5. So I guess when it comes to pricing, I think there's 2 aspects to pricing, right? There's pricing and then there's value.
Mhm.
What we aim for is that, the price that you pay makes you feel that you got a great deal or a great value in the watch. If I were to put it in a very succinct manner, there are watches where you pay tens of thousands and you feel like you get a bad deal.
Yeah.
And then there are watches where you pay lesser and you think you got a great deal. I think for us, we want to aim to be somewhere in the middle. And at the end of the day, we are a brand that was built by enthusiasts, for fellow enthusiasts, and we want to create a watch that is of great value to the collector. If you look at the watch industry today, I think you and I can agree that prices are kind of bonkers, right? It's a bit haywire. I heard that Rolex did 4 price increases in 1 year. And obviously, we do not want to be benchmarked to Rolex. They are behemoth by themselves, but you can tell the watch industry is getting a bit inaccessible to a lot of fellow collectors. And while we are not going to say we are the cheapest in the market, and that's not where we aim to be, but what we want to be is for enthusiasts and for collectors who know what they are looking for and who have a deeper understanding of horology and understand that this finishing does not come easy, or even these movement modifications, that our watches provide great value. And I think at the end of the day, it's, that's how we're going to price the watches moving ahead as well.
Yeah, for sure. For me, getting this watch in front of me I was like, this is absolute value. Like I said, the hand finishing, all the different elements to it. And of course, the jump hour complication as well is fantastic, by the way. Different time zones, immediately bang, go. I mean, GMT is cool as well, but this is very cool. Did like that it was modified from a SW330, which is so buttery smooth to wind. Anyway, digress. Yes, it makes sense, right? The amount of work that's going into it, and you're still getting that value out of it. And I guess when you mentioned, it's for people that know what they're looking for or appreciate the finer things and sort of watchmaking and horology. And I think it's also just, for me anyway, it's felt like a lesson in that I've myself have learned a lot now about the different elements from first getting into the brand to now owning it and still looking at it and going, oh, okay, that's how that's been done. Oh, that's how it's been done. And then you look at how long each stuff actually takes and all that. And then you can really start to appreciate this. And this is not it comes off an assembly line and here it is. So yeah, I get that. I get that for sure. I must ask, because as much as I love what you've done in Series 2, and I think it's super cool, it's fantastic, I'm also sometimes a very simple man. I do love my simple three-handers. And I know the vision is to, that's where it's going to be. But a sneak peek, if you could let us know, maybe you don't know, maybe you don't want to know, but can we still see kind of simpler stuff coming out from you guys in the future? Maybe not like you say, not a let's do another run of 1.5 or another run of Special Project 1. But will it be, some form of iteration of that?
I think the way that Raf and I talked about the brand is we want to keep a catalog that is still, there's consistency, right, in the catalog. So the way we think about the portfolio of products that we're going to push is more of an iterative process and building on the past year's design and then improving on it year on year. So I think to the question of whether we are going to go down that whole path on everything will be incline balance wheel and all crazy kinds of modifications, the short answer to that is no. At the heart of it, three handers, simple watches. At the end of the day, I feel I think Ralph will agree as well, they're timeless. We want to create watches that are also timeless in a way, like 10 years, 20 years down the road. We want to look at it and think we didn't create some monster. So they create watches that probably might be too early to say, but at least our kids and grandkids will look at it and say, oh, you know what, it's a pretty cool watch. So, we will have the whole a high horology, movement modification stuff that Ralph does. But we also, cater to the simple movements as well. So I think to that point, Praka, you do not need to worry. Even for myself, in my own collection, I tend to lean towards simpler designs. I realize for watches that are a bit crazier in design, those are the watches that I sell more often than not. I often in my own collection design, it's always the more old school, timeless kind of design. So yeah. I think Ralph as well, he prefers those aesthetics. So we will still do the cool Series 2 stuff for sure. And we'll create more cool movements down the line, but keeping it simple is also what we try to do.
I like it.
Ralph, if you have anything to add, please do so.
To that point, Kenny and I are both fans of Laurent Ferrier. And one of the things they do great is they make a very humble watch with some insane stuff in the back. And
I think Laurent Ferrier, I can go on talking about them for hours, but such an underrated brand, and especially in the secondary market. They are sorted in the secondary market. Yeah.
That design process of having something complicated in the back, but something very minimalistic at the front on the dial side, that's something that speaks to both of us. And we're definitely thinking about projects down the road of how we can take the dials we already have now with special series and other concepts we have and package something really cool behind it.
That's so special, isn't it? That's some stealth stuff right there. Simple in air quotation marks, but still beautifully done, beautifully finished, and back. Cool. I like it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. We always keep you updated on what we do. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I must say, to that point, keeping updated. So one of the things that you guys do really well as a brand is, of course, people who have either gone into the brand, bought into the brand, or have expressed some interest in the brand. You guys keep us along that journey. I've been getting updates on the various projects been coming out, and I'm really appreciated for that. It makes you feel like you're I don't want to say you've bought into the brand, and you're like, yeah, I'm part of it, and I'm part of that community, and That's really cool. I think it's a good decision there on your behalf to be to be involved like that. And another cool thing, and I guess before we go way over time, but I must talk about the straps. I mean, you both said that you guys are, you said that, Kenny, you're a leather strap guy, and you said that you're not so much, Raf, you're a metal guy, and I'm kind of in between. I like both. But so the straps are also quite special, aren't they? They're made by a fellow Singaporean bespoke strap maker called Atelier Kai. So how did that come to fruition with them?
Yeah, so I would say Philip, who is the strap maker behind Atelier Kai, he's friends with both Raf and myself. We met him back in November. I mean, I met him many times before that, but Raf met him in November as well. I think for my own personal collection, when I started with the common straps, right? Like the off-the-shelf kind of straps. And I just didn't really like how they felt my wrist. At the end of the day, as I said, right, you're going to wear the watch for 8 to 9 hours a day. And crappy strap can really make or break the watch experience. So I think with that in mind, when we created the brand, even though like Atelier Kai's straps are by no means cheap and by no means easy to get, because his waiting time now, by the way, is for about 5 months to get the strap. Yeah, but he does us a favor, which is he does our straps on express, which means we get it sooner than other collectors, but as a favor to us. But his straps are not easy, and because he does all the straps by himself. It's just a one-man show in studio. He's surrounded by all kinds of like different skins. It's a really cool workshop that he has. And the reason why we wanted to have this bespoke strap experience is Ralph puts in so much effort into the watches, the finishing of the watches. So much effort goes into it that I felt it's a pity like if we kind of miss out on this last detail, which is the strap.
Yeah.
If you were to, most brands cheap out on certain things, and one of the things that they cheap out on is a strap, right? They get lousy straps. And the part that I hate most is, a person gets a watch, it's a beautiful watch, they put it on their wrist, they say, oh, it sucks in terms of the wearing experience, goes into their safe, or it goes into a watch box and it's never then sees the light of day. And I think that is this detriment to the kind of work that Ralph did on the watches. So I think for me, I love leather straps. So, and to me, like the best that I've ever felt and had. I tried many straps, by the way, across even the expensive brands. I think Atelier Kai, maybe I'm being biased, but to me, he has the best straps in the business. And I think one cool thing as well at Praka, you can attest to this, is when anyone buys our watches, if they're not happy with the current straps that we offer in terms of the base model, we always have a base model of what the straps we think will best fit the watch. So for example, for Series 1.5, we use kudu straps. But then, if there are customers who feel like they want a different kind, we are always happy to cater to them. And one thing that we do as well is each of the straps are kind of tailored and bespoke to your wrist size. So one thing that makes me really happy, like Praka, you're wearing the watch earlier, and I saw that the tail end of the strap, it doesn't stick out too much from your wrist. And seeing that just makes me so happy. It's a bit of an OCD thing, but like a nice fitting strap is so important. I cannot emphasize enough. And on this point, if you look at our watch cases, there are actually two different lug holes on the case. So one is for curved straps and the other for straight straps, right? And if you look at all the cases that we have done, is 20 mm, which then tapers down to 18 mm for the lug width in terms of the case. The reason why we use 20 mm is because it's almost like a universal case size, I would say. Like most straps are actually 20 mm. The part that I hate the most is when brands, they do like 17 mm straps. I'm like, why are you doing 17 mm straps or like 19 mm? We want to give versatility to the collectors, right? We want it to try on different straps. I know Praka, you threw on a really nice green strap along the aubergine that would make it look like a Joker kind of watch.
That's it, yeah. Called it the Joker strap, yeah.
Yeah, but it worked out beautifully, right? And the reason we were able to do so is because we kept certain things consistent. Yeah, sorry for the long ramble on it. But it's not that I don't like metal straps. By the way, I do like metal straps. It's just that I have a very high expectations for the ergonomics of a metal strap, and unfortunately, a lot of brands don't get metal bracelets done well.
I agree.
So it's just hard for me to find one. Yeah,
it can be very hard. Yeah, I've gone back to Atelier Kai. I was so surprised when you guys were like, yeah, well, like I just shot my shot and I said, I love the watch, aubergine. That's my color. That's my jam. That's what I want to buy. But maybe the strap might be a little bit too much for me. what can we do? And when you said, yeah, we'll go have a look on their website and see what you like and let us know, and we'll see what we can do from there. We'll go from there. And long and behold, I think I actually found a photo of it was
Yeah.
Maurice Grotzman, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was one of those. And I said, I like that strap. What's that one? And then he said, oh, it's this one, kudu with this. And I said, well, I won that. and long and behold, that's what I've got on my wrist. And, I love it. I love the combination. I love the fact, like you said, I've measured it to my wrist and said, yep, this is the length that I want. This is exactly what I want. And it came exactly as that. And it's so high quality. Yeah. I think this is such an underrated aspect of the finishing the whole watch experience, and yeah, well done to you guys. Yeah. So Raf, are you going to sneak in a metal bracelet, a mesh bracelet maybe, or something like that in the future?
The other day, I was looking through just my junk and I had a Baltic bracelet that somebody had given to me for, I don't even remember why. And I thought, this could fit onto Series 2. And so I tried it on with the case. The profile of the end links isn't 100% perfect, but I'll get that fixed up in due time. But yeah, like the metal bracelet in Series 2 for me, that was just the perfect combination. I'm so happy with it now. I love the leather bands too. Like, I don't want to dismiss that. And especially working with Kai, I think he really embodies what we do at ZLTD, is to provide really high quality at reasonable prices. And Kai himself is Philip is such a nice and enthusiastic, energetic guy. He really matches our brand energy well.
Love it. Love it.
Mhm.
Love it. Oh, I'm keen to see the bracelet combo in Series 2.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it in how many hours? 13 hours time?
13 hours, yeah.
Yeah. We're having a business meeting in 13 hours, so we'll talk about
Awesome.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. How cool is that? Very cool. All right, guys. I think we'll wrap it up there in terms of the questioning. I've had such a fun time talking to you guys, learning about your brand, learning about yourselves. I didn't really even get to the part about, your watch collection, how you got, I sort of touched on it, but, this could go for forever, and rightly so. It's been really cool to learn all the different aspects about, the watch and the brand and how you guys got there and the future as well. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, and I guess we'll move on to the next part of the podcast, which is, the something interesting part of the podcast. Now, look, I know we've been chatting for a while now, so if there's nothing that you want to talk about, that's fine. But if you do have something that you want to talk about, please feel free to go ahead. I'll start with you first, Kenny.
Oh, okay. Thanks for volunteering me to go first. Yeah, I think for myself, recently I've been, we have been kind of going down that process of designing the next series of watches, 3, 3, 4, 5 and onwards. So I kind of bought a couple of watch books as references. So I bought books across Breguet, AP, Vacheron, Patek, just to look through the references that they had, right? Just to get a bit of inspiration. And I have to say, like, the one brand that I was very impressed by was actually Audemars Piguet, like AP. I had a book that they launched, right? Can't remember the full title, but it's basically the biography of the history of AP. They went through like the whole catalog of, the dials that they had, the movements, the hands, so on and so forth. And I was just so surprised, like, because if you look at modern day AP, right, like people keep saying that they are just a Royal Oak factory, where because they just keep churning out the same watches. But if you look at the book, when I was reading through the archives of it, it's very impressive. Like, the old designs that they used to have. I'll show you Ralph a few of the designs. Right? I was just so impressed. I was like, wow, is this really the AP that I knew? So I say this to say that, yeah, this is one of the interesting things that happened to me this week in terms of horology.
Cool.
I really love reading those books. It gave me so much inspiration that we kind of want to see how we can adapt it for the future series of watches in the design. Yeah, highly recommend fellow watch enthusiasts, pick up one of these watch books. It's by no means cheap and by no means small. So you first got to hide the books from your wife. So good luck to whoever's going to buy it. But it's really a nice read on the weekend.
Awesome. Royal Oak is what everyone thinks when they think AP. So it's cool to see of course, there's storied company, the history and everything else behind it. So yeah, it would be pretty cool to check out their back catalog and everything else. So
Yeah.
cool. Awesome. Thanks for that recommendation. Or thanks for sharing that something interesting. Raf, anything from you, mate? Doesn't have to be about watches, can be anything at all.
I think I'm just going to build on what Kenny was saying, taking inspiration from other brands, kind of looking at what they've done. For me, we mentioned Kenny likes dress watches, but for me, I'm a diehard chronograph fan.
Ah,
So
okay.
I
There you
think at
go.
some point we're also looking like Universal Genève chronographs from the 50s, 60s, kind of those timeless classics.
Yeah.
We'd really like to incorporate that into the brand vision going forward.
The tri-compacts.
For me, I'm a bicompax fan. Like through and through, I love big subdials on a simple face. Oh, that's just perfect for me.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Especially with UG getting, bought by Breitling and all that, and wonder what's going to happen. But yeah, no, awesome. Very, very cool. Very cool. A chronograph from ZLTD. I wonder what your take will be on it. So very cool. Look forward
I'm
to
looking
that.
forward to it. I know Ralph is a big chronograph person, so I'm very sure it's going to turn out spectacular. Everybody should anticipate that watch.
Yeah.
I'm also
I
looking
want.
forward to it. I do have a chronograph.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's why I say, like, this brand is like a half passion and half selfishness. These are just creating cool watches.
The cool watches that you want to wear. I like it. I like it.
It's
Awesome.
an
Awesome.
excuse for our wives to bring new watches home. It's like,
Yeah.
well, honey, I made it to sell it. Like, I have to have it.
I have to have it. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
like
awesome.
easy for
Awesome.
me to buy a watch now. It's like, oh, I need to buy the watch. I need to use it as a reference for, the future series of watches. So
R&D. R&D. Yeah. I love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, I guess something interesting. I was actually talking to Kenny about this yesterday. I went to the cricket yesterday. So look, for the international listeners or the people that aren't from Australia or the UK, who are probably the two largest demographics that listen to this podcast, who are cricket playing countries. Yeah, I went to the cricket yesterday. No, 2 days ago, and it was T20 cricket. For those who know, so the cricket's played in different lengths. T20 is kind of like the hard, the real fast, more exciting. But all, if some people bag out cricket and they don't really think it's very exciting. Anyway, I digress. It was really fun. It was awesome. I had a great time with my kid and my father-in-law. It was boiling hot in the sun, but it was great. It was great. Fun day. It was only, I think it was 30,000 people in the stadium for a weekday. I think that was pretty good, actually. So yeah, it was good fun. And unfortunately, we lost in the very last part of the very last bowl. So again, those listening in everywhere else in the world probably have no idea what I'm talking about, cricket. But it was exciting and exhilarating, but also painful because we lost the very last bowl. So anyway, for those that don't know about cricket, go check it out. It's a pretty cool game. It's pretty fun. Do you guys know about cricket in Singapore and Canada?
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We play cricket as well.
There you go.
No, we
There you
don't.
go.
I know absolutely nothing about it.
It's kind of like baseball, but not. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, I don't know
nothing
about you guys in Australia, but pickleball is the sport that is kind of picking up steam in Singapore.
Yeah, Canada as well. There's a lot of
Yeah,
people
but
that play here.
I haven't seen much of it sort of happening, but maybe it is, and I'm just not part of that circle. It's kind of like a lightweight
It's-
tennis, isn't it? Like kind
I
of.
think that's the most polite way to put it. Yes.
Okay, yeah, lightweight tennis, yeah, okay. Pickleball, okay, all right, maybe I'll go do some research on that. Anyway, I thought I'll end it with something which is nothing to do with watches. Sometimes I do that. That's it, guys. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I hope the listeners learned, a lot about not just the brand, but just the different processes, the design. And then just listening to you guys talk about these watches with the photos in front of you is an absolute treat. So thank you guys.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having
thank you so much, Praka. Thank you.
Well, I'll let you wake up properly, Raf, or maybe go back to sleep. For Kenny and I, we'll probably have to go to bed as well. So if there's nothing else, we'll leave it right there. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
me.
Thank you for listening to Overtime the Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You can find us on our Instagram at Overtime the Podcast, at Kinda Average Watches, or flick me an email on overtimethepod@gmail.com. I appreciate your support and value your feedback. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics that you would like the podcast to cover in the future, please hit us up. Until next time.